Well, you guys ask for them and you ask for them and you ask for them. So I'm having him back again. It's Brian Wong and next big future, Brian. The next big future is going to be energy storage. It's going to all be about electricity. So today we're going to talk about the new Shanghai facility. Glad to have you on board, and keep hitting that like button if you like having Brian on, because that gets him back here. See, it works. And also subscribe, notify. And Brian and I both have Patreon channels or Patreon facilities. So if you'd like to support what our activities are, that would be fantastic as well. Okay, Brian. So I sent you a quick email this morning and text, whatever it was, and I said, Brian, what's on your mind right now? What are you passionate about? And you said the Shanghai Energy Factory. Talk to me.
So the thing about that is, as we discussed before, is that those factories, the Lathrop one and then the new one that's going to be a copy of it in Shanghai, cost about $400 million. That's from the Master Plan Part 3, where they say $10 million per gigawatt hour per year, right? And so the interesting thing about that is the Fremont factory was the first car factory, and then they made not a copy, but an improved version of it very, very fast in Shanghai. They made it under a year, right? And the interesting thing about the Megapack factory is that it costs $400 million, but when you get it ramped up, it's selling $20 billion, $25 billion worth of product per year. Right. And we're already at 1.5 billion, $2 billion per quarter run rate for the Lathrop factory. So the thing is, it's also the size of a Target store, Target department store. If people don't know, Target is one of the big retailers here in the United States. They have nice big stores, but they are not huge, right? They're smaller than a Costco. A Costco store is about 180,000 square feet, right? So I'm thinking your average Target store is about like 100,000 square feet, right? The Nevada factory or the Shanghai factories, I need to look at the exact numbers, but we just did this right away. But they're on the order of millions of square feet, right? So at least 10 times smaller. Probably 20, 30 times smaller for this Megapack thing, less equipment, right? You look at the equipment that's in the inside pictures of that thing, it's pretty empty. It's not that much stuff to pack. You have a shipping container, it's going through a line, you're shoving in batteries, it's shoving electronics, cooling out the other side, right? And they're making them at 1,000 a quarter right now, and then they can go to like 2,500 a quarter. So making like on the order of 80 a day, right? So anyway, so for China to, even if you make a new building, right? China's put up shopping malls, not just a Target store, but like an entire shopping center in a month. Right, there've been things where they should put those buildings. Putting up buildings is like nothing to those guys, right? And then, of course, because like Lathrop, they converted a Target store, they don't have to make a new building. It's like that one good, pop the stuff in, pop in a bunch of equipment, and then you're off to the races, right? So they say, trying to downplay it, take a year, right? But if they were going all out, they had the equipment ordered and putting it in, you could actually get that thing up and going in like 2 months, 3 months, right? You get the building.
Yeah. Let me give a comparison. So I had factories, but they were small, 25,000 square feet compared to 100,000 square feet, 25% the size. And now I'm only talking about moving the factory from one location to another location, but it's still, you have an empty shell. You have to lay out all of the plumbing and all the electrical and all that before you move in, and then you pull in your equipment. And the reality is that we could do that move 100% in like 3 weeks. So if you had it all lined up, and you got the electrician in at the right time, and the plumbing in at the right time, and the air in at the right time, and the gas in at the right, you got everybody to do their thing at exactly the right time. And then you brought in your manufacturing equipment and your shelving and everything else. I mean, literally the manufacturing aspect of it was done in a weekend. We shut down on a Friday night, pulled out the equipment from one facility and moved it in, and we're up and running on a Monday morning. So it's possible to be that fast. So
Right.
You're thinking Shanghai. I mean, they talked about, did they ever give us an actual number?
They kind of talked about having it going in a year.
In a year. Okay.
Right. But the thing is, they had the Lathrop factory going in a year, and that's here.
Yeah.
And we know approvals, the doing all the electrical work, all the, because I gotta, it's a big factory. I gotta stick in, maybe a megawatt power line, a big, industrial power line. But this is like China for industrial. This is their thing. Sticking, it's like, oh, you need a megawatt? There it is.
Yeah.
Or a building already got wired up like that because they got factories up the wazoo, right? They are the factory to the world, right? So this is the one thing where I think for the beaten down Tesla bulls, right? This is one of the things where that could be a nice surprise where it comes in, again, just like if they were doing any expansion in Shanghai, for the car side, for the Megapack side, I think getting that up and going, the whole cookie cutter of the Megapacks, right? Megapack factories, right?
Right.
I think that is one where the bulls, the bulls will get nice upside surprises, like get done sooner and get ramped faster.
Yeah. So when it's fully ramped to 40 gigawatt facility, annual run rate would produce roughly, for rough numbers, $20 billion in sales. Right. And we've been using rough figures of around $8 billion in profit. At the earnings call, they talked about a 25%, so that would only be $5 billion in profit. But we got to think of that $5 billion in profit. If it's only $5 billion, if it's only five, that is 5/12 of what they did all of last year for everything.
Yeah. Right.
So that one factory in Lathrop will do 5/12 of what the entire company did. And then you've got another 5/12 being built in Shanghai, which would give you almost 100% of the entire year of 2022 in these two target-sized facilities.
Right. And the thing is, I believe, looking, because you look at Master Plan Part 3, Tesla said that the amount of fixed energy storage like the Megapacks that you would need for converting the world to electricity, I had the numbers in my previous article, it was on the order of like 6 to 9-ish, right? And then they need 24 for the transportation storage side, right? But the thing is, you say, okay, well, that's for full conversion, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, you go to a level, what they said was steady state was like 2.4 terawatt hours of stuff. Right. And that was to support a level of, a terawatt, 2 terawatt hours of solar and wind, right? The thing is, the solar and wind build is basically at 30 to 40% of what Tesla sees the 100% plateau at. We're already at that level, even though the total build of solar and wind is like 1.2 terawatt hours of solar, 0.7 terawatt hours of wind, of which like 40% is in China, right? 40% of the world's stuff for solar and wind is in China, and they make most of that stuff. So if that scales to how much they're building out, right? China will need about 40% of those packs for balancing out the grid, right? So that means, 2 or 3 Lathrops, maybe probably 3, and then another Megapack facility for extra vehicle charging, because they're already at 30%, 40% of their cars are not ICE, they're BEVs, right? And they do have a demand for 50% of the semi trucks, right? Of the large trucks, right?
Right.
Again, because they have most of them, right? So Megapacks for their massive 600 gigawatts, whatever, solar, wind already built out and building out more, right? They continue to build out 40% of it or more, right? So I easily see them needing 3 or 4 Lathrops, which could go onto the one factory, because a target size factory, a double target size factory, which is the Costco, a double Costco. These are meaningless size buildings for them, right? So they can pop that out. And then, like I said, the demand is there, right? So one, ramping this thing up fast, it could be producing, I think, by the end of the year. And it needs the numbers. And then the whole thing of like installing Megapacks, right? A shipping size container, moving shipping size containers around China. They shove like 5,000 on a barge and run it down the river, right? So they can load Megapacks like nothing. They can load like double the production of Lathrop in a 6 months of Lathrop production on a big barge, right? And float it down the whatever Chongqing River, whatever like that, into the interior. Fine, it takes a river thing two weeks, but they're loading like thousands of them, and they can build it out. So how fast China builds out and installs the Megapacks they need, that again could be like, to people like, oh, the Tesla Q, blah blah blah. It's like, holy crap, because the right now the delay on our side is we got to move these Megapacks on special trucks, special permits, moving down the highway, blah blah blah, because it's an extra load weight, right? China to move and install Megapacks, like, not only do they build the factory faster, they can then slap in loads of them, stick it onto cement pads, wire it up, boom, revenue recognized in, instead of like 6 months to get it, PG&E to flip it on, turn it on, do whatever. China says, built, next month up and running.
So it seems like, again, you and I think even talked about the limiting factors with regard to these mega factories. Yeah. And it's certainly not batteries, and it's certainly not, these containers that they're putting them in. It's no longer the electronics. Apparently there's plenty of chips. What it sounded like from Bradford Ferguson's analysis when he was on the ground in Lathrop, doing that great reporting that he did, it sounded like maybe the limiting factor here is some of the actual equipment that is being used to manufacture and then to load these finished products onto trucks. It sounds like those are specialized parts, specialized items, and building those is not something that anybody was already up and ramped to just keep popping those babies out. Right. So I think Bradford was saying that they're expecting the other 50% of what they need for Lathrop, maybe in September, October of this year, by the time they install it and whatever, maybe by the end of this year, early next year, Lathrop will be fully ramped and turning out that $20 billion a year run rate. It may be the same issue in China. We don't know whether they'll be using the same company here in the United States, or we don't know where the company is that is supplying these specialized parts. Would that be your take? Is that seems to be the only thing that's holding them up in Lathrop and might hold them up in China?
Again, whatever the specialized equipment that they have to build it, excuse me. If it's moving a, 50 ton, not 50 ton, but, 30 ton or whatever it is, loaded with batteries thing, right? Around, again, China moves, shipping containers at the big ports, millions of containers, all that kind of stuff. If it's just moving a heavy container, I think China has that down cold, right? Moving it there, sticking it at a port, having the big things to move the containers around. Again, it's something which I think the China Megapack factory could pass the Lathrop factory in terms of like ramping, getting it done, installing, and then again, it's getting up to bigger. So I just think that if there's, and then the demand, I don't know for sure, right? Other than the fact that, based on the utilities and stuff like that, that there should be this demand if just based on what Tesla has told us, right?
My reporting, I think I mentioned to you once before that I did a very deep dive on this a while back because I was wondering how come there's not more solar being deployed? How come there's not more wind being deployed? It's not like there's a shortage of solar equipment or the solar panels and whatnot. There's a glut right now, worldwide glut that the prices on solar panels have come down 30%. And so why isn't it being deployed faster? And after I did the research, it turned out the only reason it's not being deployed faster is not enough batteries. So some of these facilities just they may make sense to deploy them without batteries, but once they have the batteries, it just makes a huge difference in terms of the return on investment.
So the solar glut, I've done research upon that from before. So China makes most of the solar panels in the world, right? So they converted to better, faster giga solar factories. That was their own thing. They made the conversion. And so they knew that would cause a glut, right? Pretty much, but they said full steam ahead anyway, right? Because they want to dominate that market. They're strategically, it's somewhat like the new oil kind of thing. And so they want to dominate that. And they said, okay, we will suck up a glut so that we maintain 60, 80% market share. The kind of thing that Tesla's kind of doing of like, we're going to produce cars with a little bit less margin because we're going to do it. But they're even going to losses and they don't give a crap, right? Because they want that air domination and they want to go to the next gen. They want to like hold back and like not go to the next gen to make the better panels and do the stuff, right? And then they are eating their own dog food in terms of like, installing 40% of that stuff. So if the only limiting factor is the fact they have batteries, then they make the solar panels, they make the batteries, and they shove them into Mongolia, wherever, and they run it down the ultra high voltage power line grid that they have, which is kind of like their superhighway, high speed rail for energy. And then they can get it all spread around the system. So they can then, again, for them, they're making both pieces. They master it there. They have their own national interests to get solar, wind, and battery working better for themselves so that they can use less coal, right? Or they can use less imported natural gas and other stuff, right? They have these national energy interests where they want to do it. So just for themselves, they want it. And then they can then export it out to other countries, India, other growing countries that say, we need to get more energy and semi-firm energy of solar and battery mastered at scale would be, again, huge for them. But it's for their own thing first. That's what they care about. Get that working, and then and send it more efficiently, so they can, because they've had issues with how much coal they produce. Like people think they have unlimited coal. They have had issues on that with their coal production.
Don't they import some of their coal from Australia?
Right, they had to import some of their coal and stuff because they had the big energy problems on their own end, right? So they have national interests to get more reliable stuff. Because the solar and wind, if you can get it reliable, then you can reduce how much of the other stuff you're using, and how much they import is like there's only so much that the other countries, Australia and Indonesia, can send out, right? And also the whole Ukraine global natural gas thing is not good for them. They import 10 million barrels per day of oil out of the 13, 14 million barrels they need. So they have this, very insatiable demand for a lot of energy. And the more they can make that scale up work better and build out loads more, helps them continue to be the efficient factory to the world. So this is part of that whole thing.
Yeah, and of course, China is growing in wealth at a really fast clip, and as a country becomes more wealthy, they use a lot more energy, and kind of in a circular way, the more energy they use, the more wealthy they get, which allows them to require some more energy. So there's a virtuous and a vicious circle both taking place there. So obviously they gain. I think they started this solar dominance thing was part of a master plan that they set up 20 years ago.
Yeah. Many
I think
decades ago.
20 years ago, they had already made the decision, we're going to dominate the world in terms of solar. I don't think at the time anybody was really thinking about this battery component. It was more rooftop solar and parking lot solar and that kind of thing, not so much this industrial level.
No, China went to industrial level on solar pretty much right away.
Oh, they
because
did?
because they have apartment blocks and other things. The stuff that they stuck on their roofs is actually the solar thermal, but they didn't stick it on the roofs. They have these massive solar farms. That's what they went with.
Okay.
The other thing is on the issue of their energy needs at the national countries. They are about at the per capita income level of Mexico. You know, a bit below, but sometimes they're passing at that per capita income. So 1/4, U.S. or other developed nation levels, but then their energy usage for their economy, which is near the scale of the United States, they have 4 times the population of the United States, is that they use the energy of the U.S. and Europe combined.
Whoa!
So they already blew past the United States, and they actually passed U.S. and Europe combined, right? Heading towards double the United States.
Wow.
Right. So they actually have more intensive usage. Like if they get to probably not going to get to per capita income of the United States, but say per capita income of the UK, right? A far more achievable thing. So basically a double or a triple of where they are now per capita income wise. They will end up then with at the double side, 4 times US energy, which is comparable to the energy uses of American. Or if they go triple, then they're at 6 times the United States energy. And the reason they'll use more intensive energy is, one, they are the factory to the world, right? So they're in a more industrial thing, even though they want to transition to information technology. And also the fact that we, buy all the cheap stuff. Now we're exporting our energy demand to them for those level of products, right? If I'm building all my iPhones, if I'm building my refrigerators, my other stuff, all this energy intensive thing, right? I'm buying it, fine. Their energy use is higher because our demand, 10%, 20% of our energy, we're saying you build it, you spend 20% more on energy. So then they have this extra energy demand, which they're exporting out to the rest of the world. So that's also why they'll have more. Yeah.
So is China also putting in substantial wind, or is it mostly just the solar?
Everything. They build every energy source that they can. So solar, wind, all of it, as much as they can. Hydro, they dammed up every river. Three Gorges Dam. Every 2 years, they build the equivalent of Three Gorges Dam. So every river that could be economically dammed, they have dammed it. Wow. Right. So hydro, coal, 60, 80%, whatever of world coal usage. Coal, burnable dirt. Think of it. So the fossil fuels, burnable dirt, burnable liquidy thing, burnable air, gas, right? Each one of those things is, I can take this thing, coal, dirt, burnable, oil, a liquidy-like thing, I can burn that. Gas, I can burn this air. So those are the, 3 different forms of burnable stuff that you can get. So. Right.
But, and then, so in addition to the fact that they have a huge demand because they set a master plan in place to be the leader in solar, now I'm guessing that would include solar wind battery, that they would be wanting to be a leader. So there's one, that's one prong in the thing. Number 2, they have this wealth, virtuous circle going on. And then number 3, and you mentioned number 3, they are the manufacturer for the world. So they use a higher amount of energy per capita based on their wealth. And then in addition to all of that, they are wanting to export the solar wind battery, not only to the region, probably to the world, but certainly to the region. So, I'm sorry. And then the 5th one, the one that I was actually thinking of when I started that whole thing, was their major cities are like Los Angeles in the 70s. They have tremendous smog problems. So they
Yeah,
all
I would say worse than that. Worse
than Los Angeles. Man, I was here. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes you couldn't see down the street. I mean, and not from fog, from smog.
Yeah. Yeah, the pollution thing, you go there, you're coughing up black, you don't need some kind of like agency to tell you this is bad, or like I remember even in the 90s going to Shenzhen from across Hong Kong, something like that. And then even though it's like Hong Kong and Shenzhen really close, when I go into Shenzhen, I get massive headaches from the pollution stuff. It's just like, just instantly bad. Even though it's like a very close distance, the pollution was just like, yeah.
I got to tell you, I've only been to Hong Kong once, and I guess I just hit it right because, man, sitting on top of the hill there in Hong Kong and looking over the bay was one of the most beautiful sights I've seen in my entire life.
Yeah, Victoria Harbour is great. No, I said Hong Kong's good. You go across the border to Shenzhen, and then you got more pollution. Yeah, because Shenzhen, Guangzhou, that area, Pearl River, that's where they make all the electronics for the world. All the iPhones, all the tablets, all the stuff. And there's a lot of other stuff being made there, a lot of electronics. So that has more construction, more industry factories than Hong Kong does. But then those factories are not as bad as some of the other ones. But they moved the factories because before the pollution was really bad around Beijing and Shanghai. And then they said, well, we can't, make them cleaner. That's a tough long-term process. We'll just move them, like I said, moving factories into the interior. So that's where the pollution is going to be. So we have a little bit better. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's see. So in reality, if we go right back to the very beginning of the conversation, we know we've already got the Lathrop facility, and we can be highly confident, I would say a very high degree of confidence, that it'll be fully ramped by first quarter of 2024. We've got the new Shanghai factory that we don't even know if it's going into an existing building or they're building it from scratch. But at the very worst, by the first quarter of next year, they will be beginning the ramp, and it might be a lot sooner.
Right.
So we're just going off of their words. 9 months, they'll begin the ramp, or they'll have the factory up and they'll begin the ramp. And that should ramp certainly as fast, if not faster, than Lathrop did. So maybe by the end of 2024, both of those will be fully ramped, producing as much profit as tested in all of 2022 or close.
Yeah.
Now that, if the street doesn't if the street can't model that, I don't know they have a broken model if they can't take what we already know. Now, of course, they're looking at 11% profit margin in the last earnings report and saying, well, it's only 11%. Where's this 25%? But my understanding would be that even the 11% was offset by probably losses in the solar division.
Right. So, and then the issue of, worse margins as you're doing the early part of your ramp. And then there's revenue recognition issues. And also they sold Megapacks at $1.6 million before, and they have a 2-year backlog. So before they can get to the new prices of $2.5 million, then they have to build out those ones. So that's another weight on the margins on the Megapack. So they work through that, get to the real margins of $2.5 million per pack.
And so,
yeah.
Right. And then you would also have the CapEx from a brand new factory in Lathrop. You would also have the lower margins in general from the facility that was going in Reno. I've heard now mixed stories. What's your understanding? Do you have anything to report that you think is true about whether Reno will continue to produce Megapacks or whether they will be completely shut down?
Or a complete shutdown for what? I hadn't heard anything about
Megapacks. So I had heard, they were making all the Megapacks in Sparks. I had thought that they were going to shut down that line once they finished building out all of those units of the smaller type units. And then more recently, it might have been, I don't know if it was Bradford or somebody else was saying, no, maybe Reno would continue to make some Megapacks as well.
Yeah, I have no insight into that. And but the Nevada factory the main thing I heard in their call there was that, when they announced the $3.9 billion investment into that, was that it was all the stuff that they're building out there was only filling half the factory. And then they would then add in a 4680 line of batteries, it's only, again, looks like about this, again, the size of a Target thing within that larger factory. And then they would add in semi-production there. So exactly how and what, it's relatively speculation, but it didn't look like they need to shut anything down there, that they had extra room, right? So
now if we go further into the future, without any announcement from Tesla with regard to any specifics, but in general, they've made the statement that they're going to keep building more and more of these factories. Mm-hmm. So with the knowledge they've gained from Lathrop, with the knowledge they'll gain over the next 8 months as they build up Shanghai, they should be ready probably to announce maybe even multiple factories at that point, because they're so fast to put up. And by that time, they should have the supply chain in order in terms of the equipment and things that need to go into these factories. So I wouldn't be shocked to hear about more. I have certainly already predicted this. I wouldn't be shocked to hear them announcing maybe an additional factory on the East Coast or in Canada. Here in North America, I wouldn't be shocked to hear of a possible another factory in Europe. Maybe it would be at Berlin. Multiple people have suggested they would either put one in Mexico or in Texas. So it wouldn't be shocking to see several additional factories popping up.
Yeah, so my timeline roadmap would be another factory each year, 24, 25, right? To get to 4, right? And then 2 factories a year for a couple of years, and then up to 3 factories a year of these sizes. You could always then say, I make a extra large factory that goes to 120 gigawatt hours instead of 40. And then instead of like 3 of the smaller ones, I get 1 large one, right? So, 40 gigawatt hours a year, 24, 25, 80 gigawatt hours, boom, 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 120, and then at roughly steady state, to get there. Assuming some assumption I made around the timeline of, how fast does the world get to the steady state level of 600 gigawatt hours, whatever, or like a terawatt hour of renewable power to fill up those fixed storage side. How fast does the semis roll out, to get those things, semis and Cybertrucks roll out, if we get to 500,000 each, blah, 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 then you need to have, those larger amounts.
So, and Brian, a lot of the conversation, I've been part of the conversation. I've been talking about this a lot in terms of replacing peaker plants with these megapacks. But if a region switches to solar or is in the process of switching to solar or wind combined with battery, they might not any longer even need the peaker plant, right? Because now you would have a facility that could give you this immediate upload.
Right. I think peaker plant replacement makes sense, but it's like there's a range of how utilized the peaker plants are. So like, California may have 80 or something like that. Some have very low utilization, some have higher utilization. The ones that have very low utilization, you would say, okay, I want to replace those, right? Because they're more cost ineffective, right? So, and then it's case by case thing of which one gets replaced and then with the other thing. And the better you make your Megapack system, the more efficient and the more responsive like that, then the economics can improve, and you can say, okay, now this case is better, right? But it wouldn't broadly classify all peaker plants as the same thing. It's like, which, some that were only turned on for a few days, a couple of days, like 1% of the time, right? Yeah. That's obviously highly inefficient. And then there's ones that are older and stuff like that. So, yeah.
And then virtual power plants. So virtual power plants will also, which, by the way, if you don't know what a virtual power plant is, they just made an announcement the other day that in Los Angeles, they now have massive capacity by having how I
7,000 homes, 8,000 homes total. So I'm actually part of the virtual power plant here in Northern California. I have solar on my roof. I got a couple of power walls on my thing, and I got actually paid out, $700 for that user, where they pay $2 per kilowatt hour to do that thing. So last year there was about 3,000 to 4,000. Like beginning of the summer, 3,000. Toward the end, 4,000 people, 4,500 homes that signed up for it, and now apparently we're up to like 7,000 homes, right? So that nearly doubles the amount of total available power that's available for this program. So that's what's happened there, and they can not do the capex. They can just say, okay, I will just pay you more to use your thing. You homeowners are already paying for your solar and power walls, and now we will tap into your thing to give to your neighbors when there's a energy event. Although PG&E and the other utilities, it's a little separate thing, are trying to screw the homeowners who say you've installed solar and wind. Now we want to, and you don't have to pay almost any electricity for your power bill. We still have to pay for all this grid stuff. So we want to put in a minimum on how much you have to pay. If you use no electricity, you're all on solar and wind, the law pretty much means that you must be connected to the grid just in case. And also some cases, some municipalities force you to be connected. We will now charge you $92 a month.
$92 a month? That's a lot.
That's a lot, right? But that they also put in a little social engineering thing where it's less for $20, $40 a month for people at lower income, but at the higher levels of income, then it's $92 a month. But that would be, and then by the way, we'll temporarily drop down the rate charge to 30%. So if you're using, $300, $400 a month of electricity, you'll come out even.
I see.
Right?
I see.
But the thing is, 2021, they were charging 30% less. So their rate increases will get you back to that level within 2 years, right? Maybe less, right? So, and of course, the $92 a month, that's their starting point as they transition, where they say, okay,
right,
$92 now, $200, whatever later on. Again, so it's like, because they have no incentive to be efficient. They're just like, anyway, so a few things going on there, where basically you definitely want to have solar and whatever, because, when I switched over, some of my bills had reached, $300, $400 a month.
Yeah.
When I switched over to solar, and then they went down to practically nothing, just my natural gas for cooking. But, neighbors had gone to like $600, $800 a month, right? Because the prices just went crazy, right? With the whole inflation thing. Yeah. So, having a solution we can get completely off the grid, that will be an important thing.
Yes.
But
definitely.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, as always, very informative, very useful, very helpful. And folks, if you liked this particular episode, if you liked having Brian on, please hit the like button, subscribe, hit notify. If you look down below, you can see some of the great shows that are coming up. We might have Brian back again next week. So that would be a great show for you to want to be notified about. And then follow Brian on Next Big Future. Brian, I was on your website earlier today. It didn't look the same. Have you changed it around or?
There was some issue with my website where I had viral traffic and stuff like that, and some things crashed, and I had to fix things up. So I'm working to get things all fixed. So
okay, all right.
I apologize for
but you can still go on Brian's website, Next Big Future, and see the latest scientific news that's coming out across a broad range of subjects. It's a blog like no other blog out there. And then of course we both have Patreon. So for $5 a month, you can support us in our activities. Brian, again, great to have you here today. And for those of you out there, it's been great talking to you.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.